talk about the Pledge of Allegiance?
Let's
Still
go for the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right. Everybody stand for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's clear down that too.
Okay. First order of business, 1.1. Oath of office, new elected board member.
That would be you. We're going to go ahead and swear you in.
Since you're actually here.
We're going to get that done. Do you have the other copy? Just give this to him to read. What we're going to do, instead of me reading a little passage, and you reading a passage, we're just going to put our hands up in the air. We're going to say, Mr. Schoenberger, go ahead and take the oath of office.
Take the
And
oath.
read.
I, Barry Schullenberger, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution and the laws of the state of Oregon, and the policies of the Lake County School District Number 7 Board of Directors, position number 4, expiring June 30th, 2023, to which I have been elected. During my term, I will faithfully and impartially discharge the responsibilities of the office to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Sign this and she will collect it. There you go. Welcome back.
All right, 1.2, elected chairperson.
Okay, that's up to you, board, to go ahead and get parliamentary, get nomination in place, and go from there.
Any nominations?
I nominate that Barry Schulenberger just does it again.
Second.
Don't slam.
I nominate Dustin Gustavus.
His eyes for lack of a second.
I'm so glad you came home from Alaska.
Like at 12:30.
It's like a double congratulations.
Sure, I was gonna hand that gavel off tonight.
So we need to have somebody go ahead and search your name on that line to that motion and kick that motion on through.
I move to approve the election of Barry Schulenberger for Lake County School District Number 7 Board of Directors Chairman as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the election of Barry Schullenberger for Lake County School District Number 7 Board of Directors Chairperson as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Well, I'm not sure it really mattered whether you were here or not. Congratulations, Mr. Chairman.
I think there is precedent with you guys actually appointing people that aren't here either, so if that's something you guys want to do, it's been done before.
I made sure I would show up today, because I've been down that path before.
All right.
Same process in the next office.
Okay, let's elect a vice chairperson. Any nominees?
I nominate Dustin Gustavus to be vice chair. Of course. So passive today. Next year's gonna be rough.
Okay.
Did you get a second on that?
I second.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
So, you mind making a motion for it?
I move to approve the election of Dustin Gustavus for Lake County School District Number 7 Board of Directors Vice Chairman as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the election of Dustin Gustavus for Lake County School District Number 7 Board of Directors Vice Chairperson as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. There we go. Okay.
So we just get to keep going.
Let's keep going.
All right, number 3, approval and amendment of meeting agenda items.
The agenda is as presented. I move to approve the board meeting items for July 17th, 2019 as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the board meeting agenda items for July 17th, 2019 as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Approval of minutes.
I move to approve the June 26th, 2019 minutes as presented.
Second.
Seconded to approve the minutes from June 26, 2019 as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye.
I'm gonna abstain because I wasn't looking at
3 ayes, 1 abstain, motion carries. Correspondence.
You have a letter by your side, there's a place from Desi Zamudio. He got to visit me like Thursday last week. They're gonna disband the Lake County Crafts Association. They have $1,000 and they want to give that to the school district. He asked me where it would be best spent. When I talked to Susan Warner about this, I strongly recommend it down in the elementary level since the high school has a full art program. And so we used to bring in artists to residence and things like that. Susan thought it was wonderful, and then Desi followed up with a letter and a $1,000 check. And I will read it here. Dear Superintendent Cahill, Lake County Arts and Crafts Association would like to support artists in the classroom at the grade school level. Here's a donation of $1,000 for this program and associated art supplies. So my sincere official thank you to the Lake County Arts and Crafts Association and Mr. Zamudio.
Very nice. Any other correspondence?
I have none.
Any public comment? Reports. 7.1 financial statements.
Okay, if I can get you guys to look at the screen up there. So I've done obviously a pre-audit, June 30, 2019 year-end statement for us this evening. So just to recap a little bit, I'm gonna take a little bit more time than I normally do, just because it's 6:30 at 19. Don't look at me like that. And then you sucked me dry the last meeting, Lane.
Sorry. Sorry.
So 5.1 million, that is consistent with state school fund, the common school fund, and the small high school grant that we get every year. Then that also includes the true-up from 2017 and 18, which we get in May. And we receive money back for both the small high school and the state school fund to the tune of about $128,000. So that was good because we don't like to pay that. Our taxes was about 2.7 million. And the $383,000 was actually federal forest fees, which we got a little bit more this year than I had anticipated. I don't think it's going to end up being a problem in correlation with the state school fund paying it back, because I've got some other offsets in there, so I think we'll be pretty darn close on that. Tuition, this $219,000, a majority of that is coming from MODOC, and then I've got Adele and Blushes inclusive of that, which is I believe about $72,000, and the rest of that is out of MODOC. So we've got quite a few of those state line kiddos coming up here. In the restricted revenue of the $139,000, that's my counselor ESD funds that we get every year. They reimburse us a certain amount on our counselor. Half of our tech, and then those are also enrichment funds, and then they have some professional development funds available to us this year. So that's inclusive of that, $139,000. This intermediate, $96,000. They also pitch in on the ESD pitches in on one of our special education teachers, and so that is those dollars to fulfill their salary there. Miscellaneous, there's quite a few components to that. One, we had some forfeiture in our 125, section 125 account to the tune of about $55,000, so that's the majority of that 84. Plus we have a small amount of E-rate in there as well. Coming down, $72,000 in interest, that's all of our LGIP for the year, or all of our interest for the year for $72,000. So we were making out pretty well there comparatively to the prior years. Excuse me. $31,000. This consists of our safe dividend, federal Title I-A, and Perkins dollars that we receive. Excuse me. And then the $29,000 on the very bottom there is the interest from the county tax assessor's office that we received for past due taxes. Let me switch this over. So basically, if you look at the little charts, our state sources were at 101%, and local sources was at 99.47% of actual collections, and of course 101,000 year to date. Excuse me. Switch. So going into our top 10 expenditures. If you're shocked, it's salaries and health and benefits, all the way down till we get to the athletic fund transfer, which is 188,000. It is quite large. First of all, we started, the 299 fund started in a deficit last year of 31,000. Some problems, we're not necessarily over budget in the overall picture. In our expenditures with Fund 299 for salaries, travels, things like that, we're pretty close on that. But it's in our revenue. So our concession stands took a huge hit this year. Usually I get back about $10,000 of turnover up here. I received $4,700. So we've had a little bit of a conversation with Mr. Rose as to better facilitate that, so that, because it's been proven that we can make that 10,000 happen up there. So we talked a little bit about that. Overall, I'm short 58,000 on my revenues that I anticipated. Athletic gate, pay to play type situation, we're pretty close. We were a little bit under, but pretty doggone close there. I think the biggest hit was starting out negative 31,000, and then also our concession stand took a pretty good hit on the receipts. Otherwise, salaries, benefits stayed within, and these just are the top 10 of our expenses for the year. If you look up,
So some of that exacerbated on the athletic fund from the standpoint in the last few years, we added more school-sponsored sports, where we paying more
correct, and so.
coaches.
And so we ended up last year a little bit further in the red than I anticipated. That's why I didn't make up a very big very big transfer, excuse me. This year, if you guys remember the 1920, I've got over 200,000 that's gonna have to be transferred, trying to make up for that. And yes, we've added quite a bit of junior high sports.
Yeah, that was last year, the second year of junior high sports.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this will be 18, 19, the second year of junior high sports. A little bit, not too bad.
I'm surprised the concessions are off that far. It seemed like they were always busy.
We have a large inventory.
Oh.
As football, imagine the cost for football's probably increased, but focus on concussion.
I don't think the purchase of helmets, you buy helmets every year. You try to buy 6 to a dozen every year, new ones, and you still have to recondition them every year, and that usually takes 1/3 to 2/3 is what it takes when you recondition them, and then depending on how old your helmets are and how much they get used, you lose them when you go through that. But that's nothing because of the concussion protocol. It's pretty cyclical. So there is a large, I don't know how much we have on hand, but we have a large inventory of sort of pop, Gatorade, and candy on hand that we didn't sell out through the season, and 3 home football games. Those are our biggest sellers. But we got some stuff in place to streamline
Get
that.
started.
And just do a little bit better job with our inventory.
Still though, that's $5,300 compared
If I ever,
Well, this covered it, 5 home football games.
it's,
It's
Well,
football.
keeping, I mean, the concessions is all seasons.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's all across the board. I think that they struggled down there with an inventory per se, keeping control of that inventory, and having too much on hand versus letting it get down, you know, by as needed type of situation, so. And then there was a little bit of concern about, necessarily counting the money back in, and so I helped Chris, you know, kind of devise a plan of, okay, count it in, count it out, and who.
Well, and I don't know how it ended up there in the end, but it seemed like during baseball season, there was more stuff canceled because the weather was so crummy. You know, eventually they had to make those up, but that could have been part of the chaos in the end.
You know, our biggest makers are the football ones
Right.
and the whole basketball games. They used to be a larger company that we didn't have.
Right.
And so, you know, right there, I think too, you know, Mr. Rose was new with the process and really busy. And so I see that turning around. I'm not going to make any guarantees, but I don't think we'll have this conversation next year.
Yeah, I don't think we will either. I gave him a few ideas to play with, so, you know, I think overall he'll get a rhythm.
Figured out.
Yeah. So, of course, projected salaries, or actual salaries, we're right at 100%. All other objects, so that's our consumables, durables, etc., 89% actual. So we're pretty conservative there. Actual year-to-date expenditures back up to the 89.4%. Our ending fund balance, as of right now, and of course this is pre-audit, so you know, I don't expect it to change too much. I've made all the transfers that I can, and so I don't anticipate too much of a change here. But the prior year is in the red, or in the red writing, 1.3 million. Oh, sorry. But then the blue, the 1.5 million is where I anticipate we're right close at. So again, the beginning fund balance was 1,393,000. We collected 9 million, roughly right about at 9 million in revenue, and then we ended up at 1.5 million on our ending fund balance in the general fund. Excuse me. And all the other funds I'm working on right at the moment, get them audit ready. Any questions?
I have a question on the PERS. Do you have a good handle on what our unfunded, our portion of the unfunded liability is?
It's about 4 million.
And are we consistent? What the state says overall is 72 or 78%, something like that, for the entire system. So are we right in line with that, 72 or 78, or are we greater?
No, I think we're right close to that.
And then I guess the next thing is, you know, we're on limited budget, but the state also has set aside a fund with some matching dollars for folks that pay a lump sum to pay that debt. And then we get 25%. They'll have another 25% for that payment if we
We're not lined out to do that.
can look for opportunities in years where our ending fund balance, things can get better. We can make a loan there. Pay that back.
Yep.
The state has made some adjustments, if you remember too, with that recent fix, to kind of slow down that repayment as well with that recent bill adjust last session. So some of the pressure is going off a little bit. And then they're also having some of that being paid back by the different tiers of employees as well. Part of their,
I think we all have to stay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think, you know, anytime that we can make a payment and somebody's gonna kick in an extra 25%. Make this dollar go for.
questions, comments? Good?
That's the one other thing, one more comment. I would suggest that if we could ever find an extra 15 grand in the budget, I think this room and this office needs some of those split unit, what do you call them?
The air
Ductless heat pumps.
Mini split.
They're only about 5 grand.
Oh,
And they're fun. But it's hot.
I've got the sheet right here, I'll take.
Old 255.
255.
Okay. Is that it for reports?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's go to 8, old business, 8.1 handbooks.
Mr. Stratton is bringing his handbooks back. The corrections proposed at the last work session.
So, one thing is I didn't realize with you guys looking at the computer screen that you had the clean version. It was hard to flop back and forth from the clean to the fixed version. So you should have on your desk a hard copy of what I would call the edited version. So this shows the highlights of the changes and the strike-throughs of the deletions.
I want to get rid of some of your spaces on page 4. Top, so you get your,
Are you looking at the
Schedule.
hard copy or that? Okay, so if you're looking at that copy, when we send it to be printed, all the spacing and everything will take care of.
okay.
So if there's any, unless you see something like it's not a uniform spacing throughout there, we'll take care of that. Sometimes it's hard to switch between a Microsoft platform and a Google platform. So me and Mr. Rose work in a
Yes,
Google
it is.
platform. So trying to
Especially in Excel.
make that all work. So I'm pretty sure I made through all the suggestions and changes that you guys asked. And then I also added, anytime there was a tobacco or tobacco, I added in it vape pen and e-cigarettes, and that wasn't consistently through the handbook as it was when we read at the last board meeting. And those were, I'm pretty sure that was, I did clean up on page 35, travel and private vehicles. I think that is it, folks. If there's any questions on entertainment. And I did make a move on page 26, that if a senior graduates early, they may attend, and I had the community service ones out of there. I added the community service ones back in. So they can attend the community service, which would be the Optimus one and then the Lions Rotary lunch, and I added those back in.
So do we, on that specific topic, essentially because they're out of the school, our ability to discipline is fairly limited, but would it be worth putting in there that any disciplinary issues that arise at any of these events, they would be forbidden from walking in graduation or something of that sort?
I don't know if we can forbid from walking. I would have to double check with the boss man here, but we did have an incident, and what we did is we told that young man he was not welcome to any more of the functions except grad practice and graduation. So we did do that with the young man in that
Well, and
situation.
hopefully that was just an isolated,
Hopefully.
you'll know.
Most of the time it is. I think the hardest part was is one of the things that caught me off guard this year was a couple of my students, graduated students, showed up in a dress code that I didn't think was professional, appropriate for a Optimus luncheon. And that was kind of like, oh, caught me off guard. They're not in the building. Nobody's talking to them. So it's just something, I got to do a better job policing with my early grads.
So I guess I'm just wondering if it'd be worthwhile putting in a quick sentence that says the violation of the handbook when you're in attendance at these things will, that it would be disciplined with the capabilities. Because as it reads, it says they may attend these with the written request. It doesn't
Justin, what
say-
what page are you on?
26, but it doesn't say if you screw up, you may not attend these. If not this year, for something, this might be it. I know you're
That's a
ready.
problem.
Yeah, hopefully they'll just.
Yeah, because
take
I
that.
did strike out, the administration may deny the request.
I think it's,
I think we'll be all right.
it's to take down the road,
Something
consider
to
for
think
next
about.
year, and then I think we have enough, disciplinary authority where we can handle things case by case.
Wayne, do you have any
But it's something
early grad
that- it's
requests
something
already?
that-
Yes, I do. I have one early grad request on the books right now, currently taking classes over the summer. So I think, after our marathon the other night, I think I feel good with what we have in front of us. I'm not gonna say it should be easier every year that when there's a transition with principals and VPs, there's some changes, but I think we got a good start of what we're excited about and what's in here.
I like the page 29 with the pass being the GPA rate. That's good.
Yeah, that's really good stuff to bring back.
Isn't nicotine gum helping it?
Well, the state law actually says I can't discipline with the nicotine gum if there is a doctor's note saying they're using it for a sensation. But I had middle schoolers handing out nicotine gum like it was best candy this spring. Had a young lady very, very sick when she chomped on 2 pieces, which I think is equivalent to like 4 or 5 cigarettes at once. So just wanted to throw that in there because if it happens once, it's gonna happen again.
Just when you thought you seen.
So Lynn, I do have a question on page 21, the pass, it says 70% or higher, does that mean less than 70 is a fail then?
Correct.
But the F is the standard F? the
Correct.
60s.
So for pass-fail classes, that's
Yeah.
what we put. So that they gotta choose what they wanna do, if they wanna take it academically or if they wanna take it pass-fail. And most of the time, pass-fail is teacher aid, student aid, work experience, those type of things. So they're either gonna be up to their advisor or job person's standards or they're not.
Board has no further questions. We're looking for a motion.
I move to approve the 2019-20 LHS DMS parent student staff handbooks as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 2019-20 LHS DMS Parent Student Handbook, Staff Handbooks as presented. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Good job.
Big link.
It's good.
8.2, 1920 district goals.
Well, thank you for soldiering on without me in the last meeting. I appreciate that.
Picked a good one to miss, it only lasted
Yeah.
about 7 hours.
Oh my God, that's melodramatic. You felt like it.
But anyway, per what Candy gave to me and my administrative team, the thing that folks asked for was this paragraph in professional development for substitute teachers. I have included that. It is under teaching and learning, section 2, and we added a section F. District will look for opportunities to provide professional development for substitute teachers. And we kind of let it's in particular classroom rules, management discipline, protocols related to emergency situations such as fire drills, active shooter, earthquake, lockdown, lockout, information related to lesson plans and resource materials, and contact information in case of any construction emergency. So I think we've covered, did a pretty good job of covering the other things as far as what we need to do. We're gonna talk, I haven't had a chance to really sit and talk to administrators as far as what our plan of attack is going to be. I assume our next meeting, we'll discuss that. When the subdivision have that discussion, give them some files. And both complexes, the high school, middle school, and the elementary, are going to have to understand the different sets of rules. And it would be apropos, having separations, provide passion for all of the sites. So, questions on that?
I appreciate you making me this.
Oh, no problem. I think it's a very good decision. The other piece was in community relations. So on section A, we had a name of a staff member in there. So we recommended to us by you folks, in order to be consistent, remove the staff member's name and talk about the program instead. As you can see, we have removed the staff member's name and we're just addressing the program instead. So that's a good professional view on that. So we that out. My mind's eye, I believe that's all we had, correct?
Yep, there just were a few spaces, just a couple edits, other than that. was
A
all.
little bit about this, once again, Chief Advisory Committee came together in May, we sat down, hammered all this out again, we really want something accomplished in 18-19, added some new ones for 19-20. The ones that we thought we should keep and improve on, they stayed in there, so, I really like the SAC committee and the job that it does. It's very thoughtful, insightful, and everybody, your team, your players, and your contacts, classified and certified both. So for your consideration, there it is.
I move to approve the 2019-20 district goals as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 2019-20 district goals as presented. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. New business, 9.1.
Mr. Strack.
Well, in front of you folks, if you want to take a peruse, are the social studies books that we would like to adopt for next year.
On the table. I will give you the weightlifting practice.
That is the book.
That's a teacher's edition.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's 8th grade.
That cost you $200.
I think everybody's gonna get one.
11th grade. Hopefully that one makes it home to my house on occasion.
So, the good thing is having, 3 veteran staff members, Mrs. Bowers, Ms. Young, and Mr. Stupak. They pretty much was on their own in the adoption process. And they had been looking at books last year a little bit, but I sent them to a book fair earlier this year. I believe it was in the Bedford area. And when they go to those book fairs that are put on by ODE, all the sponsored textbook people are there. And then we go through and we talk about books and call them and talk about resources, and they pick. And it was down to these, what you have Harcourt and McGraw-Hill. And it was between those two. And we did a mix match because I wanted the teachers to be comfortable with whatever book they want to teach with. And so I believe 7th grade, 10th grade, and 12th grade are going to go with the Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, Eastern World, World History, and then Econ in the United States. 8th grade, Miss Chalice Young wants to go with the 8th grade book out of McGraw-Hill, which is Discovering Our Past. And we could have gone with either one. I think it was $1,000 difference if we would have went with all Harcourt or all McGraw-Hill. So it wasn't that much of a pick. The one thing is the American Pageant book, which I believe Mr. Johnson has in his hands. That is a book that Mr. Stupak would like to use for his 11th grade class. And I actually am kind of nudged him that way. We're trying to up our rigor at Lakeview High School, and he wants to teach that course with a little bit more rigor. And so we would like to adopt an AP edition. And we're only getting 60 instead of 70. We would like to keep his current textbook that he has as a backup. We'll able to have online access to the Houghton Mifflin people if we need some help. The question with this book right here, the biggest piece is the Oregon Department of Education does not recommend that book because of its level of rigor. it does not have the support for your SPED and your ELLs. We have that support within our own system. One, we have the other textbook, and history hasn't changed. So your history textbooks really haven't changed. So we have those resources and the support with our ELL and our special ed paras. So he can scaffold down for them and then scaffold up for the rest of our population, whether we go one way or the other. And I'm excited. Mr. Stupek's one of those teachers some of you had or remember Mr. Robertson. He would adopt geometry textbook and algebra 2 textbooks every year, and then he just put them in that back closet. He never used a textbook. Mr. Stupek's one of those that hardly ever uses a textbook except for secondary sources or primary sources pulling out those reading. Doesn't teach out a textbook. It's a lot of lectures, a little bit of reading. He would like to get more into that reading and teach them how to read and pull answers out of it. Hence we're going with that book. And we had 2 students this year who took the AP test. I don't know what the results are, but we're trying to bring that system back in and have more students do it. So I'm excited where he's headed with that and what he's doing for those kiddos. And hopefully what I like about it is then he can take that rigor in his junior class and roll it right into his senior U.S. History and Econ class, and then have our kids ready going to college if they choose, sit in class and learn how to read for answers, support their details. So that's what we're looking for.
So with the AP class, you also have to take an AP test.
To get the AP credit. You can still take the AP curriculum and just be happy with it and get the high school credit when you go.
Okay, so if a child, there's some that learn a little bit slower than the others. If this book, if we're teaching them at the AP level, but they aren't getting
I don't.
you said there were books there?
Well, we still have the current textbook that we didn't adopt. We didn't use it for the last 7 years, and it's a solid textbook. And so if the reading level's too high, we'll support them with that, or even support them more with the resources that went with that book. So it's not like we don't have the resources to support our lower readers or our special ed kids or EL kids. We'll have all the resources. And he's not gonna teach the class at that high AP level, but those kiddos who want to, he's gonna teach them at that level and have it.
So the resource will be available, but
Yeah,
as far as teaching to the general populace.
exactly. I'm gonna say that the classroom, you're gonna see a little bit of an up in the level that he's teaching and the expectation he has, which I think he already has high expectations when you walk into his classroom, the way he teaches. But what the cool thing is we're now going to have the resource there for those kiddos who want to take that AP's test. We're going to have that book right there for him. And he's already read through, I think he told me today, the first 9 weeks of material. So he's reading that book. And if you walk into his classroom right now, he's got his first 9 weeks all laid out for all 3 of his classes. He's good with stuff.
So I guess my concern, I mean, I'm not gonna say that, no, we're not going down that route. I support that. It's just that, I look at the education and kind of the population of the where the bulk of your students are probably within that bell, and then you have some outliers
Yes, sir.
on the side, and the AP being on one end of it, and the special ed and stuff being on the other, and so
I think we can shift, so I'm gonna see if I'm gonna do this right, doing my teacher hand motion. I think we can shift the bell curve this way to the higher end in a lot of our classes and get more out of our students. But at the same time, we will have to monitor and recognize those kiddos if they're struggling to make sure they have the proper resources. But I really think right now that in all levels, in all schools, not just this school, we can up the rigor in a high school and our students will be okay. So I'm excited.
We're kind of motivated to different, the term is differentiated instruction.
Yeah.
We're trying to do something. And recognize that, so.
I guess to just finish my thought, is that, I'm assuming that 11th grade social studies is a requirement for graduation.
Yes.
And I'd just be concerned if that rigor starts dropping some off that wouldn't have otherwise dropped off. There's a lot more effort. I mean,
Well, we'll be able to tell right away because I'm gonna be right off the bat.
I'll be right behind them, but
Uh-huh.
just, that's my only concern. I guess, I don't know that I have multiple kids, so I won't say which one, but there's something that, between the school and 3 hours a night, we're still barely cutting. So,
And they're not gonna get 3 hours a night homework.
we're doing 3 hours a night. I'm just saying, it may not be in that specific class, so there's a fair amount of kids that going any higher is a struggle. As a parent, I'm just trying to get them to graduate.
I still think that there's room to increase the rigor in the high school classroom, and I'm excited with Mr. Stupak's call.
I'm just voicing that I gotta be careful teaching to the upper end. We got a large portion of them.
Alright,
So I had to fill out paperwork to ask for a book that's not approved, and also I had to fill out paperwork to keep the current 11th grade US history book. So we'll submit that to the state.
You're basically traditional state thing, we're going to do that, so.
So can I get the fee removed from my school bill for not returning last year's books and for replacement?
So the letter on the old book, is that because we didn't go to a new one? Well, it's not like the history really changed.
It's the rules of the textbook adoption, where you have to do all these official, go through these official groups and
Unless you follow exactly along the state approved list.
it's under the, those wonderful Division 22 standards over here too.
Yeah.
It's under the guys in those things too.
If you guys feel like wrapping OE's knuckles a little bit, the OAR that they're citing on their second form there is actually no longer in the 222 standards. It's the right form, but they haven't kept up on their own citations on their what they're asking. But otherwise, they're following the process. Get with board approval, of course.
I move to approve the 2019-20 LHS DMS Social Studies textbook adoption as presented.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded to approve the 2019-20 LHS DNS Social Studies textbook adoption as presented. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. 10, consent agenda.
Thanks for your last work session, 2 hours for you.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Motion carries. Announcements.
I do have one. A great man who was a huge contributor to the school district passed away yesterday. I went to a time to recognize Jim Lynch this evening. Jim Lynch, who served 2 terms on the school board for this district back in the East. And was very dedicated to Lake County School District number 7. He was a 1954 graduate of Lakeview High School. He retained his law degree and came back to Lakeview and he was a law practice for 45 years. The big portion of that was his strong dedication to Daily Fund, Collins and Connell, Snyder Fund, Housley Fund. Everything that Jim did as far as being the official attorney of record for those funds. I was privileged to sit in my first 3 years as superintendent of the Daily Fund Committee and watch Jim in action. The passion that he had for our area youth, the passion that he had for those funds, reaching out, bringing students in, encouraging them to apply for those funds is something that deserves a huge amount of recognition. So it goes without saying that Jim Lynch was a big part of this school district, and I want to acknowledge that, and he will be missed.
Alright. Next board meeting agenda items.
Well, we have policies that took really too long, so we're going to have the next batch of policies. in the form of a work session. We will have the oath of office of our other board member that night. I'm going to give you, add this to it, Tammy, I'll give you a brief legislative update. I've been sending those to you via email, so I think you've got a pretty good gist of what's going on as far as the state legislature goes. And then we will have an executive session on that too.
But if we waited 3 more months on the policies, they would update them again.
Unless in case some 2 or 3 of them, but do not adopt, because it has happened recently, there's a session. So, anyway.
And I did talk to OSBA a little bit about that, Will. There will be another, they're expecting this legislative sessions, for a set of policies to hit about, start hitting this fall, because they're gonna try to get us up to date, because there were some pretty seismic changes in a few things. So you probably will see another round out of cycle, what would we usually do, to try to catch up with that, because they want them in effect, because a lot of the laws start January 1st. So they want those in effect, being compliant with this law, so some of them will end up changing, or but more likely being supplemental.
As I was going through those policies, 2 or 3 of them, I think, are notes. I looked at the probably should be waiting for the legislative session on this policy, and I'll discuss this.
Adjournment.
I move we adjourn the meeting.
Second to adjourn the meeting, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.